So is raw liver dangerous, or is that just what they want you to think? If you've ever Googled, is raw liver safe to eat, you're probably coming away terrified because so many people have fears around this. Vitamin A toxicity, copper imbalances, parasites, liver flukes, bacteria. I'm going to clear all of that up in today's video. Hi, my name is Selena from Wholeness Campaign. I've recovered from chronic IBS, parasitic infection, Lyme's disease, asthma, allergies, histamine intolerance, and a host of chronic symptoms associated with multiple concussions, all using food as medicine. And if you're interested in learning more, I have a free food as medicine masterclass linked in the description box below that'll teach you the first 3 foods that are the most important to introduce when you're trying to heal your gut and overcome chronic symptoms naturally. And yes, I do eat raw liver every single day, you guys. Raw liver. I've gotten a lot of questions in some recent TikTok videos about the safety of this. Is it safe? Why do I give it to my 2-year-old who loves it and is totally addicted to it? Should I be reported to CPS for giving my 2-year-old raw liver? I'm going to talk all about those things today, as well as I believe the safest way to ensure that your liver is going to benefit you the most without causing any problems. So let's jump in. Okay, so the first biggest concern when it comes to liver is that people know that the liver is where toxins get filtered. That's true. Toxins are filtered through the liver. Somehow people have concluded from that toxins also get stored in the liver. And I want to explain this. Toxins do not get stored in a liver that is healthy and functioning. If the liver is congested, if the animal is being fed crap and the body isn't able to detox properly, yes, the liver is going to start to store toxins. But in an ideal case, I think when you make sure that the quality is really good, and we're going to talk more about this at the end, you don't pose the same problem as, say, a conventional cow that has a very poor functioning liver because they've been fed grains their entire life and they've been fattened up with GMO soy and corn. Those are 2 completely different animals. And what I'm advocating for is the healthy, grass-fed, on pasture, regeneratively raised animals. And those types of animals tend to have extremely healthy livers, actually. They're not only the most nutrient dense portion of the animal, but when the animal is healthy and has a functioning liver and lymphatic system and is getting all of the detox elements that it naturally would get from nature, probably we should all be getting those too, you don't see the animal storing the toxins in their liver. So that's a little bit of a myth. And just to be clear, the same thing that could happen to this animal that's unhealthy is also very likely what's happening to you if you're unhealthy. This is actually what I teach people how to overcome in my Whole Health Blueprint coaching program. I work on helping you clear your detox pathway so that your liver can be functioning optimally, because oftentimes that's where you start to see chronic symptoms, chronic infections, parasitic infections, systemic infections throughout the whole body. That's typically when you see that happening. And just a note, if you're struggling with chronic symptoms, you might want to take a look at your liver as a source of potential congestion. But again, we are not living in the most ideal environments. Animals, ideally, a healthy cow on pasture ideally would be. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Parasites, liver flukes, and bacteria. Okay, so if you've been following me, then you know that I don't believe that raw liver just has this exorbitant amount of bacteria just because it's raw, and nor do I believe that if you cook it that it actually would get out all of the bacteria, like the bad bacteria that would be there. Otherwise, you would see people not getting sick on meat that's gone bad just because it's cooked. But we know that people get sick off cooked meat all the time if it's not high quality and if it wasn't handled properly. So that's what I would say to that. If bacteria is festering in meat, we have a question about the handling practices. We have a question about the health of the animal. And actually, when you look at the data, which I did a whole review of the actual research that is out there right now and available and kind of picked it through. I actually read it. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't actually read the research, but I actually read it and looked for what type of control variables these studies are holding for. And quite frankly, they do not hold for quality. They do not hold for differences in shipping or handling. They do not control for the health or the diet of the animal. None of those are considered in these studies. And so it's very broad sweeping claims. I go into it more in that video. I'll link it below if you're interested in learning more about raw milk, raw meat, raw eggs, the whole gamut. But I truly believe if it is handled properly, which it should be no matter what, whether you're eating it raw or not, that you don't have an issue of just like random large amounts of bacteria, or it is extremely, extremely rare, much more rare than you might think. And then on the idea of parasites and liver flukes, I think that just goes back to my main point. If you see liver flukes or parasites in your beef liver, I would encourage you not to eat it. And a lot of times you actually can tell, and I have seen beef liver that does have liver flukes in it. So I will say that you need to know what you're looking for, but they will look like, I'll pop up a picture on the screen here. They will look like these little fishy looking patches in liver. And if you see that, not all parts of it, like you got to know what you're looking for here. I'm going to post some pictures. But if you see that, I would encourage you not to eat it and not to buy from that source again. Oftentimes this is cheaper animals. It's like a lower quality cow that wasn't handled properly. Not only that, but this is an indicator of the animals being sick. It's an indicator that the animals are not being well taken care of. If they're accumulating large amounts of parasitic infection in their bodies and their liver is starting to accumulate flukes, we have a problem. And no, I would not recommend eating that liver. The crazy part is that even if you did eat that liver, if you've got functioning stomach acid, you actually may not have any problems. I am still an advocate for animal-based nutrition over plant-based, even if the quality isn't as perfect as it possibly could be. So if you're asking that question, should I be vegan because I don't have access to high quality meat? The answer is no. Some tips that you can try out is if you freeze liver at -4 degrees Fahrenheit or -20 degrees Celsius for at least 14 days, this will actually kill parasites and liver flukes. This is what they do to sushi to make sure that everything stays safe, ideally, which probably isn't always done, as you may know. But conventionally raised cows versus grass-fed cows, antibiotic, hormone-pumped cows versus pasture-raised in the sun cows are going to be a completely different animal. And I would be more concerned about your stomach acid functioning properly, because whether or not you're eating meat raw or even vegetables, you actually really need that stomach acid functioning against pathogens in general. So whether that bacteria is coming from your own gut or whether that's coming from an external source of you eating it, you can get it from lettuce or beef. There have actually been more outbreaks from lettuce than raw eggs, and that's a controversial one. But if you go and look at the research, nobody is talking about the risk of parasitic infection from plants, and it is actually very common, you guys. Okay, so can your stomach actually digest raw beef liver, raw liver in general? And actually, raw liver is easier to digest for a number of reasons. It's got all of the enzymes intact that help you to actually break down the meat. And this is why people see so much benefit when they go on a raw carnivore diet, is that they're getting all of the enzymes intact. When you cook meat, you will cook off the enzymes. You actually will decrease the nutrients slightly. This is why I think I feel so much better eating it raw than cooked. I notice benefits either way, and you can do whatever you want. But personally, I notice a dramatic difference when it's raw. Again, you need your stomach acid to be strong, but that's a separate problem. If your stomach acid isn't strong, you'll probably be noticing other symptoms in your body like bloating. You might have been diagnosed with SIBO or candida overgrowth. You might have symptoms of IBS because your stomach isn't actually breaking down your food. So yes, we want stomach acid. Ideally, you're not diluting the HCl that is naturally in your stomach. So you want to be not eating your raw liver, ideally with a bunch of water like I typically do. But I will say when you eat that alongside of a meal, when your stomach acid is already really good, I've never had a problem with it. My body digests it quite well. And it really comes down to, I believe, the enzymes that are supportive of the digestive process in the raw meat. If you've been on antacids, antibiotics, a low protein diet, then you may struggle with this. And again, that's a separate problem, something that I address with clients. And I would consider digging into that as a root cause problem, not blaming the raw meat. Okay, now another big question, very common question. Doesn't raw beef liver give you vitamin A toxicity? Because beef liver is really high in vitamin A. How do you not get vitamin A toxicity from beef liver? And I would say, first of all, most people are extremely nutrient depleted. Most people are depleted in vitamin A. So for you to start taking beef liver supplements every single day or taking in raw beef liver every single day, most of the time people are so depleted that they do not ever reach that point. Your body will actually tell you if you're eating it and not taking a synthetic vitamin A supplement, your body very likely will tell you once it's hit its max. You will kind of be repulsed by it. You might not want to eat it. You actually have to look at your signs that your body's giving you intuitively, if you're eating intuitively, ideally, to know what your body's craving, what it's needing, what it's wanting based off of your desire. Actually, your taste buds will alter based off of the nutrient deficiencies you have. So pay attention to those. I think we're so far off from actually hitting our minimum with this. And I think that when you are eating nutrient-dense whole foods, not synthetic vitamin A, you're not at risk for randomly consuming large amounts of it. outside of your body's consent, like you would be with a supplement. When you take in a pill form of vitamin A, your body doesn't recognize what you're taking in. It's not able to have that sort of visceral response like, ugh, I'm done with that taste. I don't want it anymore, because it's a supplement. And so I would be very wary of supplements. I actually think most vitamin A toxicity comes from synthetic supplements. I don't think it really can come from nutrient-dense whole foods, because it's got all the cofactors to help you assimilate and absorb it, like the choline and zinc that are very bioavailable in beef liver. They assimilate very easily into the body, and the body knows how to process it. So it's not just accumulating. I think anytime you take a supplement that is an isolated supplement nutrient, you do run the risk of toxicity to some degree, or imbalancing other key nutrients or minerals, because your body wasn't meant to necessarily be taking it in that large amount. And if you don't have the other cofactors, it can become a problem. Again, I'm not totally against synthetic supplements. I do believe in them in certain cases with certain nutrients, but you do have to be careful when you're taking them, and you need to be careful in a different way than you would be if you're just taking a whole food. This is why have a food first approach here on my channel. I'm like very passionate about it. We want to make sure you're getting food before you're even touching a supplement. Okay, next thing is, will it throw off my copper levels? And beef liver contains bioavailable copper. It is a trace mineral that we need in small amounts for energy production, detox, brain health, metabolism, whatnot. The big controversy here is that it can throw off your zinc and copper ratio in the body. And this is a reason why I actually do supplement with zinc on the side. That's one of the reasons why. There's a couple other reasons. I think it's a cofactor to iodine. You do need to make sure that they stay in balance. If you are eating a whole food, nutrient-dense diet, very likely you're getting large amounts of zinc, and you may not even need to supplement with zinc on the side. I think the problem can sometimes be when people are only taking large amounts of beef liver. That's their only source of nutrient density in their diet, and they aren't balancing it with a whole food nutrient dense diet. I think that's really when you start to see problems, because ideally the other foods that you'd be consuming would actually make up for that. And that's where seafood can come in. You can eat oysters, and it can be an awesome way to balance the copper levels and the zinc levels in oysters. So the moral of the story is to eat a well-rounded, nutrient-dense diet. Don't just get onto a fad and only eat liver. And I would agree with that. What about too much iron? Actually, I think this is a total myth, because liver has the most bioavailable form of iron. It's not synthetic. Actually, taking iron supplements can become very problematic for the gut microbiome. I don't recommend it at all, but iron in liver is going to be much more easily assimilated in the body. Beef liver is high in heme iron. It's the kind that your body actually absorbs. The retinol and the copper in liver help you to actually absorb the iron well. I always like to have the liver alongside a fat or alongside some vitamin C to help you absorb it even better. I don't think most of us have enough iron in our diet. And again, your body will regulate its need on its own. I really believe that. So I don't think it's about too much. I think it's more about the metabolic capacity of your body to process the iron properly, if that makes sense, which is probably a conversation for another time. Should you eat it raw or should you eat it cooked? This is a big question. Here's the difference. When you eat it raw, the nutrients and the enzymes are intact. They are much higher in raw meat of any kind. If your stomach acid is strong and healthy and you've got, robust enzyme activity already going on in the gut, you've got lots of probiotics, like ideally you would have, the digestibility of raw beef liver is going to be pretty high. You're going to be able to digest it and really assimilate it well. Some people also find that the taste of liver is more mild when it's raw. I don't know if that's true or not, but that is a consensus that I've been finding. Some people just genuinely like it better. And cooked, on the other hand, does cause nutrients like B12, vitamin C, and certain enzymes to diminish. Not greatly, like you're not losing all the benefits, but it does cause the nutrients and the enzymes to be slightly diminished. Enzymes are pretty much destroyed by the heat, and people do find that it actually is harder to digest for that reason, is because when it's raw, you've got all the enzymes that help you to break down the meat. So I personally can just attest to the fact that I feel so much better when I have it raw versus cooked. Neither is better. If you're taking in liver, I think it's great no matter what. But there's anecdotal evidence, and I'm finding this in my comment sections. There's anecdotal evidence that people find the raw beef liver to be much more beneficial, that it helps much more with energy levels, that it helps with their mood, that it helps stabilize other chronic symptoms throughout the body. And I believe that type of anecdotal evidence because, first of all, we do see that the nutrient levels are lower in cooked. And I truly have experienced it myself. Somebody else asked, doesn't freezing destroy the nutrients? And I would say it doesn't destroy them. It does slightly diminish them. So if you have access to fresh, raw beef liver, that's probably the most ideal. Most people do not have access to that. Most of the time it's been frozen. Unless you're on a farm where you're really close to the butchering process, you're not going to necessarily have as much access to that. And I personally have experienced lots of benefits from frozen raw beef liver. So I don't have any problems with the slightly diminished amount of nutrients. I don't think they are completely destroyed. I do think it can destroy parasitic activity. Freezing is a well-known form of food preservation, and unless you're leaving it for years in the freezer or you're defrosting it and then freezing it, defrosting it, and then freezing it, like I don't think you're going to have that big of an issue. And then people also asked, does eating it frozen without thawing it make it harder to digest? And I think the answer is yes. For me, it's worth it to do it this way because I don't taste it when it's chopped up into tiny pill-sized pieces, and liver does thaw so fast, you guys. I think it's probably thaws in the length of time it takes to get to your stomach, because it is just, especially when they're in small pill-sized pieces, they melt. Like the second they hit your skin, they're melting. So I don't have a problem with it. If you think you might, you could add in some digestive enzymes at the beginning of it to help break it down a little bit more. You could eat some food before you eat some of those frozen raw liver pills. But personally, I do just notice benefit and I don't like the taste. So that's what we're trying to do here. Make it mentally manageable for the purposes of consistency and helping me to feel my best. I know many other people who have done this raw liver pill frozen thing, and they find it a very sustainable way to take in raw liver, especially if you don't like the taste. But the ultimate consensus for me, in my opinion, is it safe? Yes. I did have some people in the comment section telling me that they're going to call the police for giving my 2-year-old son raw beef liver, that it's something that they could call CPS over. That's wild to me because it is literally the most nutrient-dense food on the planet. And we eat raw meat all the time whenever we're having rare meat, like rare steak or a rare burger. So that's wild. I think the world is a little bit upside down right now. My best tips for making sure it is safe is going to be to freeze it for 14 days. Source it well. Make sure that the cows were healthy. Inspect it for liver flukes. Again, like I showed the pictures, and do a good inspection. Ask your farmer what they feed their cows. Make sure that they're healthy, that they're not fed antibiotics, and ultimately listen to your body. If you're craving it, eat it. If you are starting to not crave it, eat less of it. If you are craving certain forms of it, eat that form of it. If you are craving another food and you find that that food is starting to balance it out better, eat that food. I am really an advocate for nutrient-dense, intuitive eating. Once you start to recognize the signals your body is giving you, to listen to those. But those are my tips for making sure that it is truly safe. And I don't think you have much to worry about if you're checking all of those boxes. Beef liver has done the most for my healing. And I can tell you from personal experience that I always know when I haven't had it in a while, because my irritability levels rise, my anxiety will rise. It's like my body is crying out for nourishment. And so I'm really trying to be consistent about giving it to myself. And hopefully you can kind of jump on that train and see all the benefits that you can have for yourself in your healing journey as well. Don't forget about the free Food as Medicine Masterclass, which I will have linked in the description. It's a free masterclass about the top 3 gut healing foods that you need if you're really going to conquer your chronic symptoms naturally using a food first, gut first approach. I teach you all about the root causes of chronic symptoms, chronic illness, and why we as Americans are probably experiencing a lot of that today. So go ahead and check that out. It's linked in the description. And if you got any value out of this video, like the video. And for more root cause gut health related content like this, subscribe to my channel because we would love to have you here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.